This is the Eye for an Eye channel. Welcome to today's show. We are getting closer and closer to war. And I'm not talking about war with Russia. I'm not talking about war with the boogeyman. I'm talking about war with the Antichrist. The more chaos that ensues in this earth, on this earth, in America, in the UK, all over, the more chaos that ensues, the closer we are getting to the accepting and the revealing of the Antichrist. And I want to play something because I know I have new subscribers here, and I know some people have heard it maybe in the past, but I was just watching it myself because I'm preparing mentally for everything that's going down. And I want everybody out there to see it, whether they're new or not, to just re-up on the information that Russ Dizdar once gave to everyone in the Black Awakening about super soldiers. So for those of you out there who are new to all of this stuff, you have to start understanding how the human mind works, because this is really what's going on is an entrapment. It's a psychological operation of the human mind. And what we have are a lot of individuals out there. You might hear in a lot of shows that you watch, whether they're crime shows or documentaries about these things, about schizophrenia, about multiple personality disorder and all these things, split personalities, etc. Right? Everybody's heard that. People have been diagnosed with that. A lot of people in the 80s were diagnosed, as I've covered over on the website Uprising Revival in the past. A lot of people in the 80s and the 70s were diagnosed at the time with these diseases, with these mental disorders, with these types of ailments. When they went in and they were starting to show signs of this, they were immediately diagnosed with multiple personality disorder, which didn't exist up to that point. That's because so many children were becoming victims of satanic ritual abuse. And so many of them were used as what we look at and what we've heard of as Manchurian candidates in our society, right? We've all seen The Bourne Identity or heard about the movie The Bourne Identity. I've actually never seen it, but there is a movie from the 50s, I believe, or the 60s, a Manchurian Candidate. I'm sure they remade it multiple times. In other words, a super soldier, right? A soldier who is programmed to kill, a soldier who is programmed, who is emotionless, who goes out and does the job. Now we know, the job that he's trained to do. Now we know that they use movies to reveal the truth to us all the time. We know that, right? Everybody out there should know that. If you're new to this, realize that. The truth is in the movies, as crazy as that sounds. I get it. When you first wake up, it all sounds insane. It's too much to wrap your head around. You feel like you're going to combust when you hear these things. But the most fabricated thing in our society is the news. And everything that everybody believes is going on is a manipulated, controlled lie. It's to control you. It's to herd you. Okay? They reveal their true plans and things that we look at as fiction. So when they reveal these things about super soldiers, about Manchurian candidates, these are things that they really have. And that's why they're going forward with this plan now, because the majority of higher-ups in the military are, in fact, super soldiers. They've been trained through all types of ritual abuse. Now, when you hear the word ritual abuse, a lot of people don't know what that means. It's a way that they create splits and alters in people's minds through trauma. So they put a young child. You think of a young child, you think of a young child doing what? A 2-year-old, 1-year-old learning how to walk, crawl. They're putting kids through trauma-based mind control at that age, when a child is crawling. That means they're doing things to them, not just the unimaginable things that we know that they're doing as far as abuse. I don't even know how to word it with the algorithm, but abuse as far as their preferences in the bedroom, I guess I'll say. But they're also doing things that we would consider horrifying, things that would traumatize us at this stage of our lives, right? Locking kids in caskets, doing all sorts of torment and trauma to their mind, right? This is what happens to them eventually, is they disassociate from these trauma-based events. And these people are able to mold and manipulate their minds so that they are pretty much slaves to them. At their beckoning, when they hear certain words, they'll do certain things. They'll be able to snap in and out of altars that our government creates in their minds. Now, this doesn't just happen in our government. This happens with Satanists and people in Hollywood with their children. That's why you see a lot of these celebrities. You never hear a story about the celebrities' kids coming out and outing their parents for being in the occult or any of that stuff, right? Of course not. Why? Well, because they've gone through the abuse. And most of the parents went through abuse at some point in time too, because inside of secret societies and the occult, this is something that they continually do. They never stop doing it. They abuse their kids. They abuse their next generation of kids. When they grow old enough where they aren't going to be abused anymore, then they become the handler and the abuser. So it's a never-ending vicious cycle. You want to look at it and you want to say, where does this all stem from? It all stems from Satan and Satanism and the practices that these people perform. And they perform it every day. It's happening around this earth. Every day. That's why when you hear all this stuff about trafficking, etc., and you're like, oh my gosh, the lid's blowing off. It's not blowing off. Because they want to keep you thinking about this stuff as if it's sexually isolated and it's just preferences of sick people with a lot of money, but it goes deeper. If you actually knew the trauma that they put them through, the training that they put them through, and how we have more and more people on board with all of these things that they're doing with children, is because a lot of these people have grown up in the same situations and suppressed a lot of these memories. And a lot of people now in our society, you will, I guarantee you know somebody who's been through this type of abuse. And you'll see people in the comment section who say it. A lot of times people are like, oh, they don't really mean it, or they're just saying that for attention. No, it's true. People reach out to me all the time who have gone through it. There's no, nothing for them to gain or benefit from saying. Like, if they want to message me and talk to me that badly, I mean, that's pretty sick if they'd make up a story like that. And sometimes I use my own discernment. If somebody does message me a story like that, I'm not just going to immediately respond, because I need to use my discernment and evaluate the story and see how much of it holds truth with all the things that I've read from victims of this and all the books that I've read, whether they're books on psychology, books on trauma-based mind control. There's a lot of stuff out there that you could read. I try to break this down and simplify it for everybody on YouTube so that it doesn't blow your mind, because it is the type of thing that, you could go just completely, you could start losing it for days. I mean, not losing it in the sense of doing something harmful, but I mean, just, it's so stressful. It's wearing when wearing on your soul when you read these things and hear these things that they do to other human beings. They're unfathomable. Right? That's why we say, why is anybody surprised when they reveal some of this stuff? Because this is even close to what they really do. So, that being said, super soldiers, as Russ Dizdar is going to tell you about, and Russ Dizdar is no longer with us. He passed I believe it was in the last 2 years. I'm not sure if it was last year or 2 years ago at this point. I can't keep up. Must be the 5G. But he has a lot of great stuff, and a lot of stuff that's hard to find. The Black Awakening, the book. A lot of people on the website, we are always kind of talking about where we can find copies of it, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm going to play a clip for you in a minute. But I want you to just think about these things, okay? We have soldiers out there. These aren't people who are like me and you. These are they are trained to do things that we couldn't even imagine. And I'm not talking about just the basic military soldier. The people that are doing this are protected by these super soldiers. They are the same people who have gone through traumatic satanic ritual abuse, whether it was when they initiated themselves into the military and then went into a certain branch of the military. And again, I've talked about the wicked people like Michael Aquino. I mean, we openly have a Satanist who is no longer with us, supposedly. I'm sure he's in a chamber frozen somewhere over in Bagelville. But, he looks like Eddie Munster. Remember Michael Aquino, who openly is a Satanist and was allowed to have a high-ranking position in our government. And this was at a time where things weren't as crazy as they are now. Like, people should have been rioting and protesting against this. But of course, remember, the Satanists always pretend like it's just a show. It's just hocus and pocus. They're playing dress up. They don't really believe in this. They don't really believe in that. And that's how they get away with it. And they do that, and they're sworn to secrecy. They're obviously not going to admit what they really practice, because what would happen? They not only would be in jail, there wouldn't even be a trial or an arrest for anything. What would happen is what's happened throughout centuries, where these people have been literally rounded up by the people, by the real men in those towns, and women and mothers who saw these people performing acts on their own children and neighbors' children, etc., and nobody was putting up with it. So what do you think? They're going to come out and admit to it? People are like, how come these guys, they're all denying it? They're not really saying. They say they don't really believe it. Oh, okay. Would you admit to it? You're going to go out and admit to doing sacrifice? Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, they're liars, right? The Bible tells us that they're liars like their father, the devil. So as more chaos ensues, it's important to have this understanding that the spiritual war is only going to get worse. There's going to be, of course, a war going on with flesh here on earth, right? And a lot of the people are caught up in that. But spiritually, we all need to be aware of what we're dealing with here. And we need to use prayer, we need to use fellowship, and we need to unite with one another to fight against this. Here is the clip after my rant here. I apologize for making it so long, but I didn't want to make the whole video just the clip of Russ Dizdar. I want to talk a little bit about it so you can have an understanding of what a super soldier is and a Black Awakening is. It's pretty much the Antichrist uprising. No pun intended with the term uprising. It's the Antichrist uprising. And that's what we're getting closer and closer to as more chaos ensues here on earth. Here's Russ Dizdar. Hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know what you think in the comment section below.
What is the Black Awakening?
It's related to the Red Horse prophecy in Revelation. It's related to 2 Thessalonians 2, when it says about the day of the Lord, the parousia. That day will not occur until the apocalypse of the Antichrist and the apostasia, the word rebellion or revolt. That's all really defined in the prophecy of the Red Horse. But here's where the term came from and why I used it purposely. When I started dealing with ritually abused individuals, then we dealt with military-oriented, highly trained, programmed shooters and assassins inside of them. when we began to deal with them, I dealt with someone from Fort Bragg for quite a while and a few others. We're sitting in a lake, Conneaut Lake. They reached over and ripped open my shirt to see if I was wired, if I was wiring and recording them. And they were the most sophisticated satanic warrior type person. They knew 5-6 languages. They knew the ancient twilight languages. They knew how to conjure. They knew how to use Belteshazzar, Okwam, all these old Pictish languages of the Druids to summon. They are the real Luciferian. They've been through many human sacrificial things. So they sat there to tell me some of those things, what they've been involved with, how they sacrifice a human. I'm listening to all this stuff from them. And then they said to me, you have no idea, Russ, how many of us there are out there. How many satanic, they use the term, chosen ones. You have no idea how many. You have no idea what's coming. We smell Christian blood. We are waiting for our day. And when the call is given, millions of us will be released. And they looked at me and said, you believe in revivals and you believe in Pentecost and the power of God. You believe in all that. We believe in the Black Awakening, a multi-continental release of power to activate the program demonized, where they've weaponized the demonic powers to these super soldiers.
Are they waiting for a specific time to unleash their power?
Yeah, they are, because they have to do it at the moment the Antichrist is, like you read in 2 Thessalonians 2, that it's caught the echo, the restrainer is holding back the apocalypse of the Antichrist, the unveiling in his movement. So right now he's held restrained. Soon as he who restrains is removed, soon as that occurs, we have White Horse, the release of the Antichrist. Instantly, we have the release of the red. It says the whole earth. Arene, peace is taken from the whole earth, and all of a sudden, it doesn't give the details, but all of a sudden, on a global scale, people are released to begin to, and the Greek word is sphadzo, slaughter, begin to slaughter people. It's used of animal ritual butchery to begin to slaughter individuals. That's exactly how they defined it to me back in the 90s. And we've heard this again and again and again. So that scenario fits the Masonic version of Chaos Before a New Order. It fits Father Meradon from the Cathedral of the Black Goat, his book, The Devil's Bible. It fits that scenario too. So some of the oldest, darkest occultists, the idea of chaos first, a collapsing of everything so that a new order can rise, that's all by design. And we've been given the heads up in prophecy, but all prophecy has boots on the ground. It'll all eventually happen. So I do believe that millions and millions of these trained, programmed, altered, demonized super soldiers, whether we want to say it or not, they believe they're being raised to help bring the Antichrist in. When I was in England just a few months ago, their top guy that deals with SRA, Wilfred Wong, 25 years. So first time I meet him, I pull him aside and I said, listen, you've been doing this 25 years? Yeah. I said, you know all about programming and demons, all that? Yes. I looked right at him and I said, Wilfred, why are they here in England? Instantly, he said, they are here to collapse our government. They are here to help bring in and usher in the Antichrist and a new order. He didn't know me. He already knew. That's true in Germany when we were in Germany, when we went to Wadelsburg Castle. That's true in Poland when we went there. That's true in Switzerland. It's true in Canada. So when we talk about our research in 38 years worldwide, there may be well over 100 million generations of them. And if even half, or even if 10% were intact, like say the United States, remember the shooter in Vegas? Look what he did. Look what that guy did. Okay, notice what would happen if 10,000 of them, or like Colorado Holmes, or like Jared in Arizona, what if 10,000 of them were released in 1 week? That's their plot plan, and biblical prophecies ahead of that to say here is what is going to happen, and from that a global monetary collapse, and from that's all that chaos is coming. So Revelation 13, a whole new order with the Antichrist can come.
Scary stuff.
Yeah, can be. It's scary for the world. For
Yeah,
us,
for us, yeah.
we know no matter what.
We're
Yeah,
emboldened with the
Yeah,
Holy
yeah,
Spirit.
yeah.
Yeah. So next question. This is a two-part question. First part: does SRA exist, and if so, how prevalent is it in society today?
Yeah, satanic ritual abuse, and I could say it this way: it not only exists. Satanic ritual abuse is inseparably connected to multiple personality disorder. All of society knows since the late 70s, and even DSM-3, DSM-4, those are the diagnostic manuals for psychology. They all know that all of a sudden, multiplicity started showing up everywhere. They call it DID now. So the secular world, they're registering, millions coming in for diagnosis on that. Now, they don't know how to handle the satanic side. So I'm going to tell you just straight out, after 38 years of dealing with it, not only is SRA real here in the United States, that there are millions of victims by design, that there's now generations of them. We deal with 65 and 70-year-olds. They're the first generation. Then we go to 40-year-olds and 20-year-olds. I got 8-year-olds and 12-year-olds we're dealing with. Because if you don't stop this somewhere, they do it to the next generation. That's by design. That's the way it's supposed to be for them. So, but it occurs in selection. It's generational. It caused and it's simply to say that they bring a lot of trauma to the child to cause split in personality, so that they can demonize and or begin to program. You're going to be a witch. You're going to be a conjurer. You're going to be a program shooter. All kinds of these things happen, and then they're raised in that system. And they're raised to keep all of that hidden down and just have kind of little Joey up or little Sally up. And they may not know until they're 15, 16. They may not know what's inside them till later on. But millions have already showed up at psych wards all across America since the late 70s to this day. We look at a child and automatically we're going to protect them, save them, guard them, whatever it takes. They look at a child, they'd eat it alive, they'd destroy it, they'd torture it. You got to remember, that's their nature. And so if they could show more of their nature to a defenseless child, they love that. That's why some rituals are called demon revels or satanic revels. The younger the child, and here's exactly what dark undergrounders have said to me, the younger the better, and we never kill them right away. We prolong the torture. Why? Because we have to raise the energies, the terror, the fear, and then little by little letting some blood out, because blood is and all that torment, it's like, think in terms of rats and garbage. Smelly old garbage draws the rats. A ritual with all that torture, with all that pain, ultimately prescribed by the demons in the first place, it draws them. And once they begin to open the blood gate, that's what they attach to in the context ritual. Then when a child or a human is killed, that's when the demons are released to the practitioners. So it's all about their unsatiable hatred of God. Anything they can do to harm humanity, harm innocence, as an attack on God in a sense. There's no question, in their nature, they don't shed a tear. They don't have any mercy. So they'll harm, and they love that as part of the entrance to come into the side. Here's the other side of it. We've been to Canada, Scotland, Geneva, Switzerland, Germany, Poland. They're all over there. We just got back from Scotland, UK, and we met one of the guys there, one of the leaders in the whole nation on the subject, and same issue. It stems from the original Nazis creating a master race. Wherever the Nazis went in the early 50s, rat lines all around the planet, wherever you see them going to escape, then you see the rise of SRA. So we need to rename this. SRA that's the tools to hammer this in and to augment these people and to bring the demonization and to create them. But really, it is part of the master race development that started back in the late 30s. And Himmler's goal was to create 200 million of them.